until Thanksgiving, I think it's really busy.
Yeah, well, I can understand.
Even at Thanksgiving week when there's some traffic, and not as
Mhm.
much as normal, but. That's how, of course you would. If you didn't, it'd be like an anti-Michigan person, anti-Traverse City person.
Yeah.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
Thank you, Kim. I call the meeting to order, roll call.
Got it.
The agenda that you have before you, we need to modify under J1, the historical designation, CLG. He actually is going to be able to be here in November, so we're moving that to our November meeting. So that has come off. Outside of it, so is there a motion to approve the agenda? Is that correction?
I'll move that.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, moving on. Is there anybody here from the public that would like to speak? Hearing none. Moving on to the consent agenda. You have the minutes from last month as well as the treasurer's report, the bill listing, which actually we don't have a copy. There's one up here on the podium that Kim provided. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? I'm sorry, Buddy moved to support or to move the
To support,
agenda.
yes.
Is there support?
I'll support.
So moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, so under the executive committee, we have this back on our agenda because I spoke with Mr. Womack yesterday in detail. The city commission did not approve Jim's contract. I'm going to tell you like the highlights from what I received from Mr. Womack. But what I'd like to do, because I think this could be like very time consuming and we want to make sure that we get all the details right, I'd like to get authority to act from this board to work with Mr. Womack to work out the details of what the changes are. I'm going to tell you the highlights, but I'd like authority to do that because if it'll take too long to sit here and do this today. And actually, Mr. Womack thought he would be here by now, but because he's not, I'd rather him be here than not be here. So if we could actually, after I go through these, provide me authority to act with Mr. Womack, then I could bring back a draft that is complete. And we can hopefully get this resolved on November 22nd, which will be our next board meeting. And then there'll be no issue with its approval. There's nothing major here, but there are some, good morning, Jeff. So I'm just going to highlight the things that are concerns. So the number one is that the contract can be terminated by either party. I'm just going to read this, which makes for the legal potential that the board would be obligated to pay the director a severance package, even if the director were the one to terminate the contract. Okay, so that's one issue. This is a more minor issue, and actually he's already provided me some proposed language. The term cause as used is poorly defined and should be beefed up a bit. So there actually really isn't a definition of what cause means or for cause. So I do have language that he's provided actually from his own contract that will help provide us information. I can give you, it's quite a long list, but cause could mean conviction of or a plea of no contest to a felony, misconduct, whether during or outside the course of employment, which substantially impairs his ability to function effectively as executive director, or which brings disrepute to the office of executive director, gross negligence in the performance of duties, fraud or embezzlement, dishonesty, intentional falsification of records or documents, financial improprieties, misuse of position for personal gain, or deliberate misrepresentation of material facts to the city, DDA, willful neglect or abandonment of his duties, drug test confirming the use of illegal substances under Michigan law, or intoxication while working, violation of federal or state laws, the city charter and the code of ordinances of the city, which again, this is under his contract. So obviously it would be the DDA, but a violation of federal or state laws obviously is the bottom line. And then material breach of this agreement. So again, that's just an example, but we need to define what for cause means. And then the requirement to give 30 days notice to the board to terminate the director makes no sense and defeats the purpose of providing a severance. So if you recall, when we did this contract, we provided a severance package if in fact he left, we terminated his employment. And so that's more of another issue in here, but why would we provide 30 days notice if in fact there's gonna be a severance package, which is already gonna provide payment? And then the biggest issue actually in this entire thing is that the term of the severance could be easily interpreted as to up to 24 months or 36 months. And at first I'm like, what? This is a 24-month
That's how it
contract. So the 24-month contract, if you recall, has a automatic renewal date. It automatically renews for 20 or 12 months if we don't do anything. So technically, they're saying that because of that automatic renewal, if we do nothing at the end of the 24 months, it appears to them that's a total of 36 months. I don't necessarily agree with that, but because of that, they want to clean up that language to make sure it's very clear. But they also think that the 24-month time period for a severance package is very outside the norm. It was indicated that the market norm for a severance package is more like 6 months than it is a 24-month period. So that was really that particular point I just brought up is the main issue for the city commission. And then there were some other things that we talked about that were really, he said, did you draft this contract? And I said, no, it's a contract that's been in place for a long time. We tweaked it on a couple provisions and we got one clause from our DDA attorney to change because he didn't like one provision, but this has been something we've operated under for a long time. So he said, well, there's some just minor like issues that are not substantive. They're just like worded incorrectly. They should be modified. So then that's when we talked about, well, maybe we could sit down, him and I together, if I had authority to act from this board to iron out all those issues and then come back here in November to this board, you guys would have it ahead of time. We would not have it here at the next meeting to look at it, and then hopefully we can resolve it once and for all. So I don't know and I know we're sitting here talking about this in front of Jim, but this is what we need to do. So what are your thoughts? Please let me know. And Deb is obviously here to give more input on this.
Well, Jim was already aware because I called him the next day. Anyway, so of what the problems were. It's really the contact language that we were surprised that some of the language got written up the way it did. It needs to be done corrupt. And we are very concerned about the language. That's what threw most of this off, the language of the fact that an employee could have 2 years of severance, and in our case, possibly 3 years. I'm not sure what your intent was for the board. If you really wanted that 2 years, it's way out of the norm. Most DDA directors don't even get a severance package. Jim deserves a severance package. A new employee may not. So that's going to be up to the board. But my suggestion is, I don't know if we can give you authority to, maybe for the executive board to meet and to finalize this after you've met with Mr. Womack so that I can push it through and call a special meeting. I think Jim's concern is this has been going on for several years, really, but now we're way past the date. Can we speed it up at all? That's up to you guys.
Well,
I just think that it needs to be pushed through as soon as possible so that we don't miss any dates. The end of November is always a thing. That's what we're supposed to do July, correct?
Yeah, it was, and we didn't actually we got here to approve the contract in August, the end of August. But I guess all I wanted to be able to do was I want to give you guys the opportunity to say, do you like, are you okay with me having a conversation with Mr. Womack to work out the details of this? Obviously, there's no authority to act because obviously I can't jump over this body and say, okay, this is the contract and then send it to the city commission. But I want to make sure you guys are okay with me having the authority to work with Mr. Womack to work out the details of this and then bring it back to you the day before Thanksgiving to be able to have it approved. Well, I don't know if that's possible. I mean, we're at the end of November almost, or October, excuse me, and I don't know. I guess I can ask what people have available between now and Thanksgiving to do a special meeting.
Yeah, I could call a special meeting just to take care of this.
You mean the city commission could call a special meeting to
I
take
can.
care of it?
Yeah.
Right, well, the problem is
After
we
you
can't,
get, after
right,
you're done, you
so-
have to review it.
right, so
Give
I
you
don't know how,
authority.
again, I thought Mike would maybe be here this morning, he had indicated he would try to be here, so I don't know what his availability is. All I can tell you is that, when could you potentially meet with the city?
November 6th is our next meeting.
So that would leave me next week, but then we would actually have to meet next week, and I can tell you, I can't do next week. That's, I could do any other week, I can't, I got like trials every day, I'm sorry.
Well, you could,
But I could do the week after, but that would be the week of the 6th. The 6th is literally a week from Monday.
I know.
So unless there's there's a special meeting that the city calls, which I can't imagine they would do, maybe they would, but,
I have the authority to do that, and this is important.
okay, well then, if you could meet, like maybe on, I don't know, we could meet, could we do the 8th? I could do the 8th, the morning of the 8th, which is a Wednesday. It's the first Wednesday of November at 8 o'clock. I don't know what everybody else can do, if that's even possible. Any input?
I have another question. Does the board want to go through all of this?
I
mean,
have to
the
leave here.
executive board, and then maybe if you just send it out and have people's comments. Or do you have to officially have in a motion? Yeah, you would have to officially have
Yeah.
a motion, so.
Yeah,
I think we waited this long, what's another month? Yes. I mean, without,
well.
Because we continuously do this.
well, I don't know. At least we have
Well,
a date. that we-
So I would be more
Bring it back.
concerned if, Jim, his contract, his salary is not changed from the current contract to this contract. The only difference is obviously the term, so we do want it to be retroactive to July, that is what it should be. But the other part is there are additional personal days, so I guess if that were to come up during this period, I don't know where he's at with his number of days at this point. You're below, so it's still okay, but if we were not to have this approved, we would have an issue with giving him those additional personal days if we don't have an entered contract. So that's my only concern, so, I guess that I need to know what the board prefers. Do you want to do an early meeting, a special meeting, or do you want to just wait until the 22nd?
I would say, I think, just from my own personal standpoint, I think as long as it can be done by the end of the year, I would be happy.
Don't get
It gets
us
frustrating though.
Well,
If it's approved by the city commission in December, I'm okay with that.
Okay, so then I think, well, I guess the question is whether, I didn't get a lot of input from whether or not anybody could meet before the 22nd of
I
November.
cannot meet the 8th.
Okay.
Next week I could.
I think it's going to be difficult to get everybody together outside of our normal board meeting,
What
so,
happens if we move the board meeting up a week? So we're not meeting twice in 1 month.
so you mean,
So it would be the
Either
15th.
so it's- I don't know, if we have any hunters here, that might be an issue, otherwise, I don't care, I can do the 15th.
15th works for
Can everybody be here on the 15th, which is 1 week earlier?
Does that help as far as the
It would,
commission meeting?
you could
If
meet
we
on,
get in the next
you could
meeting?
actually meet on the 20th of November,
The 6th.
yes.
Yeah.
So then I think that makes it, that I'm able then to work with Mr. Womack between now and the 15th to bring back to you before that meeting, a final draft of what we've worked out. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so that's what I'll do then. So we need a motion then
We need a motion
to,
to reschedule
reschedule it.
the DDA November meeting from the 22nd to the 15th.
I'll make a motion to reschedule the DDA meeting from
22nd.
22nd to the 15th of November,
At 8 o'clock.
at 8 o'clock. City Hall chambers.
It's been moved by Deb, supported by Tom. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I'll send an email out to the full board with it.
Yes, thank you. And then I will reach out to Mike.
Actually,
Hello,
it
good morning, Mr. Womack.
Or
might be
And
better too, because of day before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, right. I was a little bit worried about how many people would be actually here on that day, so that'll probably work better. Okay, so moving on to committee reports. Outreach committee.
Outreach committee has not met yet. We're going to work with Jeff and Ashley on getting that going because we do need to get our annual giving campaign going. That's probably the most important issue because we're heading into November, so we want to make sure that we get those letters out there and we'll have some fundraising for next year. So yeah, I'll work with you and Ashley to get that going.
Okay, business development. Tim is not here. Do you know what?
So we had a short conversation. I kind of outlined it in the written report. It's there. The main thing was looking at ways we can support development for existing and possible new projects as well in the downtown area. And I think Tim is going to follow up. Tim or I will follow up with concrete kind of date and time for future events.
Placemaking.
So in addition to the information in the packet, we did our observation walk on the 9th for wayfinding signage. And out of that, we've got some individual tasks for the areas or locations of these signs, the content of the signs, the number that we would like to see within the city or the entrances to the city. And one of the main ideas that came out of it, which is another task that we put on as a project, would be potentially a marquee or a kiosk that would be in the center or a couple different locations within the center of the city that would basically communicate the businesses. So basically the wayfinding would be a high level, here's City Hall in this direction, shopping in this direction, things like that. And then the kiosk or marquee would have all the businesses identified that we have in town with directions and things like that. So that was one of the main tasks that came out of there. We've added it to our project tracker, and those are the top two that we're working with right now. The number 3 item that we're working with is the certified local government, which you've already mentioned, will be here in November. That's another thing. Are they coming on the 22nd?
I'll check.
Well, I need to verify that
Yeah, I just saw
information,
that.
yes.
So, but we're making progress. We've got some designs that Jim has worked with in the past. So the committee's looking at the existing design of these signs. We've looked at some pictures around different cities here in the local area as well. Our goal is to have this completed, funded, and implemented no later than spring. So it's on the fast track, but that's our goal.
Thank you. It was actually a very productive tour, so thank you for hosting that.
It was cold,
It was a very cold morning.
very cold.
It was very productive though. Did you end up having a meeting? 'Cause I didn't, I
Yes,
couldn't make it to the meeting that you had, later meeting, so,
yes.
okay. Did you want it, did anything come of that meeting?
That's
Did you
when
wanna-
the second item of the marquees and things, we've
Oh,
divided that
oh,
task into 2 tasks now.
Okay, that's where you did it.
Even though it could be the same funding, the different timelines for both of those.
Okay, thank you. Events committee.
Just a really quick update on that. Treat Walk is this weekend, Friday, the 28th. If there is anybody available to volunteer at Gallery 194 to pass out maps and treat bags, they would be appreciated. Just because the DDA office would actually like to participate as a location
What time frames do you need?
from noon to 2. So, is the gallery
On the
staff?
28th, right?
Yes, 28th, yeah.
Okay.
This, I said Friday.
You said
Yeah, you said
Yeah,
Friday,
sorry.
you scared
This
the crap out of
Saturday,
me.
this Saturday, the 28th. His gallery staff will be busy with the Pix side of it, handling things on their end. So we'd like to have something down at the Lyric Mall, something to pass out. We got Main Street stickers to distribute. So just to kind of add another level and make it a little more fun on our end.
Who's the contact person that we should contact when we get to Gallery 194? Are you going to be able to Gallery 194?
I'll be there initially, yeah, to kind of get you started.
I'll be there. I'll do
Okay.
it.
I'll be there too.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so moving on to, there's no subcommittee business report, I don't believe, Center for the Arts.
September was the first month of the Center for the Arts running the Gallery Gift Shop. And it's so far working out quite well. Sales are up. And the Lapeer Art Association has an increase in membership, which is the exact reason why we made the switch. So far, so good. And I encourage you to come in because there is a lot of new merchandise, but that's new artists into the community. And the gallery classes went very well in October. We had 69 participants in art classes this month. Art classes have expanded from being primarily on Saturdays to now we are also doing Friday classes and hoping to get more and more throughout the week. The pick season started with Rocky Horror Picture Show, the live version, which brought in 541 patrons. And most were new to the Picks and to Lapeer. We got the majority of the audience came from Genesee County, which is good. And it also brought in a younger demographic, but also an older demographic because it turns out Rocky Horror came out in 1975. And that turns out to be almost 50 years ago. What? Yeah. Yeah. I thought, oh, you guys are here for the original one. Okay. And that was a 2-week run, 6 shows. No, I have not recovered from that, but we went right from that into a very new project for us, which was Lapeer's Buried History. If you didn't hear about it, it was a cemetery tour that happened last Friday night, October 20th. We had, the setup was that it was supposed to go from 5 to 8. We had the tours scheduled 10 people to a tour at 15-minute intervals. Somehow we ended up with 116 people coming through. It was very successful and it was very cold and it was rainy and people still kept coming. So it was great. It was really good. It was, if you didn't hear, it was a historic tour, not a haunting. We were at the grave sites of the pioneers that helped settle Lapeer and other influential people. And we had the golf carts because the settlers are in the original part of the cemetery, which is the southwest corner. And that cemetery, if you didn't know, is 25 acres. So the golf carts came in handy.
Yeah, didn't seem like it was that.
There's plenty of room there too, just in case you need to know. So we did that. The feedback has been very, very positive. Ticket sales for October, as of yesterday afternoon, were at 1,050. On Monday of this week, Laurel and I went to the Michigan Presenters Conference in Lansing, which was a really good conference, and the first time that Laurel was able to go with me, which was great because when they do the breakout groups, she was able to go to the marketing breakout group while I went to the executive director breakout group. And it's reaffirming because many of the organizations are facing the exact same challenges that we are facing. And many are still carrying a deficit from last season. So everyone is feeling optimistic about this season being better than last. We're off to a good start, so hopefully it just keeps going. And I just found out through my email this morning that the 2 new radio shows are going to drop for next week. These are projects of our youth arts, The Vengeful Corpse, and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow will be on our website next week. I just completed those.
Thanks, Jill.
Any questions? Did you have any updates on your HVAC units?
None.
Well,
I didn't want to ask the question.
I don't want to hear either. I don't want to hear the disappointment from LaGrange Plumbing and Heating. I don't want to hear about the history of, no. We just keep hoping.
I have a quick question as well. I know there was some concern about the 6 shows for Rocky Horror over 3. Were the crowds pretty even, or were there?
The crowds were better the second week of the runs. I was really hoping, because I was trying to encourage them to not have a Sunday matinee. So I was really hoping people wouldn't show up for Sunday. Damn it, they did, but. So, yeah. We had, by the second week, we had more people in costume with their props, which if you don't know Rocky Horror means the theater had cards, glitter, rice, confetti, rubber gloves, and toast. Oh, and newspapers.
Oh.
I have pictures. Toast. At the wedding, they toast.
Oh,
And some people bring a whole loaf.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to staff report. Jim?
So this is my once a year shameless plug with the Picks. John LaChance and I will be there performing on November 18th. This year. If you're not familiar with John, John has been featured on Penn Teller Fool Us, he's been on Masters of Illusion, he's been on Good Morning America. So it'll be a good show. If you're not doing anything on the 18th, check out the Picks Theater, we'll both be there. Moving on from that, so the most important thing is our development plan and our TIF plan runs through 2024, which means the time to start looking at that, reviewing that is now. It is a process. We'll want to work probably with Dave Churchill for it as well. But my recommendation would be essentially to start with an executive meeting to kind of review the development plan, review the TIF plan, work through it, see if there are any changes that we want to make, and then come back to the full board with that. I would recommend a renewal or an extension. If you get into like modifying it or changing boundaries or anything like that, it also gives taxing jurisdictions the opportunity to opt out. So I would recommend we stick with either a renewal or an extension on that. Typically, the process is we need to review it, we need to look at updates that we want to make. We would then send it to the city commission, present it to them. They would need to do a public hearing, and then following the public hearing is when you have people from the city commission. So it can take several months to do, which is why I would recommend we start working on that.
So when it gets to the city commission, do they it goes there first, they have a meeting on it, and then they set another public hearing, and then they come, so it actually could be 3 separate meetings for the city commission? Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And what is the actual deadline in 2024? Is it the end of the year?
Yes.
Okay, so obviously by meeting in at least the beginning, in January, we need to start doing that.
Yeah, if not sooner. If there's any, if the commission has any recommendations or anything they want to see changed, it comes back to us before it goes to the warning as well. So like I said, it can be a process.
All right, I'll reach out to Ashley and Megan, and Tim, do I have everybody? So try to coordinate a meeting between now and Christmas.
Okay. And I did sign up for, the MDA has a informational webinar, training webinar on TIF renewals. So I did sign up for that. We will receive the link. So there's a fee of $45 for it. So once they get the check, which I would anticipate it probably like next week, we'll get the link for that, and I can share that.
So you can look at it at any time.
Yes.
How
Yes.
long is the webinar?
It's about an hour.
Oh, okay. Let's say maybe we could just sit there and watch it during the meeting, but if that's a little long.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can share that with the board even, so that you guys have the information
Yeah.
as well. Following that, we did have our Main Street accreditation check-in, on-site check-in. Thank you for those of you that were able to make it to kind of the roundtable conversation. They will put together their report and get that back to us probably in January with their recommendations on where we're doing well, where we might need to improve. One thing they did touch base on and kind of reminded us on is we do have a habit as a board of saying like, yes, we're going to do something, and then sending it out there to do, and then either it falls on me or it just doesn't happen. So best practice for that is really to, if we identify a project, refer it to a committee to work on. At that point, it can be developed, it can be planned, they can look at what the proposed budget would be for that project and then present that back to the full board at that time for approval. But that way, it also identifies who's going to be the lead, who's going to be doing this task, who's going to be doing that task. And it kind of helps us keep an eye on where our budget is each year too, and making sure that we're falling in line with our strategy of family-friendly, arts and culture, et cetera. So that was one of the big recommendations just from that meeting.
Yeah, I actually, I just add on to that, that is the main thing I got out of that meeting is that we do have a habit of, I think it's a great idea to come up with ideas at this meeting at the board level, but we really need to take those ideas and send them back to the committees that are relevant, because I actually stood up and took ownership of this issue. And actually, it was when Jeff was gone. Jeff had talked about an ambassador program. I think we did it at the board retreat even, we talked about it. And I said, hey, this is what Jeff would like to do. I said, I think it's a great idea. We talked about it, and then we actually voted on it at the board level. And then it's kind of just sat. I mean, Jeff and I are busy. We're not the only two people that can do everything, but I do think that was a problem, because what we should have done is decided, okay, we want to do this. Let's send this to whatever committee that it makes sense to go for it to go to. And then maybe they can discuss whether this should be a priority, maybe this year, maybe not, for until next year. But we do have a habit of doing that, and I think we need to stop doing that. It's good to have great ideas, but we can't do everything, and obviously Jim, we can't keep putting any kind of the burden on him. So that was the biggest thing I took out of that report. So thank you.
Just a few more things. I've started meeting monthly with fellow DDA directors in Lapeer County, just kind of talking about challenges, successes, and ways that we can work together moving forward. So in Emily City, Almont are the two other communities with full-time directors. We've also been having Dana Walker, who's the executive director for the Michigan Downtown Association, joining us, and Sam Moore from the Lapeer Development Corporation joining us as well. So we just had our first meeting last month. We're going to start doing that on a regular basis now. I am meeting with the Kiwanis Club this afternoon. Looking forward to that. And I've also met with the FIT team that put together the First Impression program. And we're hoping to meet on a regular basis as well, just to kind of keep reviewing the recommendations that came from that First Impression tourism program, and looking at ways that we can kind of create more DDA, city, county partnerships through that. And then also talking about the possibility of hosting that Connecting Entrepreneurial Communities Conference. And we're meeting with Andy from MSU Extension in December to talk about that and kind of look at what the requirements and expectations are, to see if it would be a good fit for the year. And then I will be out of office next week, November 1st through the 3rd. I will be at the MDA's annual conference. This year is in Birmingham, Michigan. And I'm actually going to be leading one of the roundtable conversations there, thinking like a magician. We can work for downtown development, which the MDA has also pitched to National Main Street Conference to present that topic and some other placemaking topics at the national conference in Birmingham, Alabama next year. So we'll find out in December if we are approved for that. With that, that's all I got. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Moving on, under new business, we do have a board vacancy. I know that we were going to look at, kind of the, what's the word I'm thinking, and kind of demographically, like what industry, what industry we're kind of missing from this board, and what would be a good, what would be something we would want to look at, reaching out to those that could serve on this board. So I know that there's not been a lot of discussion about that in the last month, but if anybody knows anybody that would like to serve on this board, let us
Would be
know.
helpful if we knew, or if I knew at least, which criteria that we're missing. Are we missing
We're not missing our
the downtown resident,
We're
or are we
not
missing,
missing
what are we missing? So
So
Can it be a number,
I think it can be at large.
could it be,
So
A
this is
business
to fill the seat
owner or
that
what?
that Bailey had, and she was a city resident.
okay.
But I think we are currently, we have all those roles filled.
Yeah, we
So
do have
it
a
could be
city
at large.
resident.
So if I talk to anybody within the city of Lapeer and they have interests.
Yeah.
Okay.
Refer them over to me, and I can kind of chat with them on expectations.
Well, yeah. But, okay.
Could it be possibly someone from county government?
You have to be, you have to be a city resident.
It have to be a city resident
Well,
or own a business.
I mean, if there's
One
city-
at-large member.
Yeah, you can have one at large.
That's true, because Mike O'Brien was obviously not a city resident. So he's at large. All right, moving on to project approvals and work plans.
Which is kind of what I touched base with on the Main Street accreditation. First, I forgot to actually put it on the agenda, which is right there.
Thought you wanted us to do something during the meeting. That's
No,
why
that
I
was the main
at.
thing, was that we covered that.
Okay, all right, well, there's nothing under old business, board member comments.
do you expect to do a retreat this year?
I would like to, yeah. Probably Lee is just coming back from maternity leave, beginning of November. She's the one who usually facilitates that for us. So I want to talk with her as far as her availability. Typically, we do that in January or February. Last year was in February. Probably a similar timeframe this year.
We definitely should do it because I thought it was really kind of instrumental to kind of how this.
Yeah, I think they
It's
are
very
very
good.
helpful
Yeah.
practice.
All right, anyone else? All right, if there's no correspondence, so is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Adjourn.
Yeah, November 10th.
No, I know.
It's kind of his farewell
I'm sorry.
No, I know who you're talking about. They're working anyway. You see, that's why I say,
Yeah,
my,
I know
my
it's
city
really
life is like that.
I think you have a question now. We're just, I'll go downstairs because they're gonna leave. 4 or 5 minutes. Yep.
Because the KPIs, that should be our sales. You know, on the sellout, so, yeah. And it says,
Yeah.